Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we are getting straight into things because you guys have been asking the questions, the whole world has been asking the question, can England beat France in the quarter-final of the World Cup? I'm here to tell you that they can. Now for me, this video is going to be split into two parts. I'm going to record one part on Wednesday, one part on Thursday, with the idea being half the video is going to be looking at how England can hurt France, and then the other half is going to be look at how England need to defend to stop France from hurting them. Now, for you guys, this is all going to be in one video that will all be covered today, and me, being an optimist when it comes to England, there's plenty of pessimists out there, so I take it upon myself to be the optimist. I'm going to focus on how England's attack can hurt France to start off with. So that is going to be the first part of this video. Because for me personally, I think when you're a good team, your focus should always be playing to your strengths, rather than trying to mask your own weaknesses. Yes, you have to do that at some point, but today, I want to look at how England can hurt France for the first half of this video, because genuinely I think that England can hurt the French team. And then, like I said, the second half of the video, you guys are going to see what England need to do from a defensive point of view. But let's start with England on the ball, because in my opinion they will have decent amounts of the ball in this game, and the reason for that is because France don't particularly want to press. Giroud doesn't want to press high up the pitch, Griezmann doesn't, Dembele doesn't, and neither does Mbappe. What that means is that England will have some time on the ball, and France will likely drop off into a bit more of a 4-4-2 shape. A slightly off balance 4-4-2 shape, but a 4-4-2 at that, with Ousmane Dembele dropping into a right midfield position, Griezmann kind of coming into this right centre mid area, Tchouaméni left centre mid, and then Rabiot in this sort of left-sided space here. He's not going to be out on the left wing defending, but he's also not a left central midfielder. Kind of this left pocket here, which is quite interesting. Giroud up front by himself, and then Mbappe kind of playing off balance here. So we can see we've got the back four here. There's then slightly off balance 4 in the middle, and then there's off balance 2. And what this will mean is that England can build possession. Now, the first thing I want to point out from England's point of view is, unfortunately, something a little bit cautious. Kyle Walker, please do not cross that halfway line, my friend. Of course, he'll have to at some point during the game, but it should not be a regular theme for Kyle Walker to push forward. If Walker pushes forward, it leaves room for Mbappe to attack. Mbappe with room to attack is deadly. So, immediately, we're setting England up to be ready for a defensive thing, even on the ball, which is quite a good thing to be able to do. If Kyle Walker can play this slightly deeper position, it will allow England to build possession with a back three, with Declan Rice playing in front of them, and then Luke Shaw playing on the left-hand side, still not pushing too far forward early on in the build-up, but much higher than what Kyle Walker is, giving England this off-balance 3-2 shape, which gives you enough players to cycle the ball and build possession, but also gives you enough defensive cover to deal with someone like Mbappe, because we do have to deal with Mbappe. Now, the way that the French will react to this is they won't mind too much. They will be happy for England to have the ball in these areas. However, one thing that I have noticed with this France side is that when the ball goes to a left centre-back, there are situations, it doesn't happen all the time, but there are situations where Giroud uses that as the pressing trigger, and he will step in. And basically from there, the rest of the France team follows. We'll see Dembele pushing up on Luke Shaw, Griezmann will come on to Jude Bellingham here, and France kind of use this as a pressing trigger, so it's important that Harry Maguire his first touch is good, but also his passing is good, but also his composure, his confidence on the ball needs to be good. If not, France will try and catch England out in that area. Before we continue with the analysis, I want to talk to you guys about JerseyFIFA.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that's the latest home shirts, the latest away shirts, tracksuits, or even retro kits, Jersey FIFA has a bit of everything. There really is something for everyone, so if you are interested, then make sure to use the link in the description down below and head to JerseyFIFA.com. Now, as I was saying, this is a shape, or a pressing trigger that France have used throughout the tournament so far, but what the more observant of you guys will have noticed is that it does leave Declan Rice in a lot of space in the middle of the pitch. So perhaps England with just 2 quick passes, Jude Bellingham using his strength to hold off Griezmann, which physically is a bit of a mismatch, finding Declan Rice, this could be a way for England to very easily break the French press. Now some of you will say, well, Tchouaméni can step up on him. Not if Harry Kane is dropping deep, because when Kane drops deep, Varane won't want to be too aggressive, it's just not his style. So Kane could potentially distract Tchouaméni in this area, giving England this free man to break the French press. So that's a good sign for England already. If England are breaking that kind of pressing trigger from France that easily, France will eventually sit off and go, okay, we'll let you have the ball. We've seen it in all of their games so far, particularly against Poland. However, they still will not get Giroud and Mbappe goal side, ball side. They don't want these two defending. They want them ready for the counter-attack. And yes, I'll come on to that counter-attacking threat in the second half of the video. But in terms of, from England's point of view, trying to play on the ball, it does mean that England should have superiority. Because If two France players aren't getting back and doing their defensive work, it gives England the ability to create overloads. And it also allows England to push their two central midfielders in Jordan Henderson and Jude Bellingham much higher up the pitch, trying to pin this French team back. And now we can see sort of this off-balance 3-2 in here, and then front five shape that England should be using to try and hurt this French team. Now, one thing that we can see if England do this is that they will have the overload in the middle. Again, Varane in particular doesn't want to be too aggressive when defending Harry Kane. England could generate themselves a 4 versus 3 in the middle of the pitch, which for France is very bad news because these England players are quality in these areas. What else is bad news is that in Jude Bellingham up against Griezmann, you do have a mismatch. Griezmann, as good as he's been all tournament, one of the best players so far for me, does not want to defend. He doesn't want to go back towards his own goal. It's not his game. Of course, he doesn't want to be dealing with these areas. So if England can work the ball down the left-hand side, then I think England can cause some real problems. And I do think this is what England will look to do. They've done it most of the tournament so far. England will prioritise building possession down the left, because Shaw is one of the best ball progressors at the tournament, Bellingham is one of the best midfielders in the world, and Foden is a wonderfully technically gifted footballer. And wide combinations could be very useful for England, something which has been useful a lot for a lot of teams at this tournament. Wide combinations, this trio of Shaw, Foden and Bellingham could do it very well. Especially when you're against Dembele, who doesn't want to track back too much, Griezmann, who doesn't really want to track back, and Jules Koundé, who isn't a right back, which means at times he gets caught a bit too narrow because he's used to playing in more central areas. England can cause problems here in this little 3 versus 3, especially also if Harry Kane is going to come across. If England can build the ball down this left-hand side, get it into Harry Kane, something like this, and then Jude Bellingham making a forward run into the channel, that could really allow England to hurt this French team. And for me, this is where England should be prioritising. England can cause a lot of problems down this side of the pitch, with Shaw, Foden, Bellingham and also Kane making these combinations. Just because I don't think the French defenders in this area are the most aggressive, which will give you that ability to just take a touch and slide a ball through. Bellingham's runs off the ball, but also Foden's 1 versus 1 ability out wide, his ability to cross as well, potentially for someone like Harry Kane, could be really good. England need the width of Foden down this side, but in general I think their combination play could be really dangerous. If this is happening, France will try to react and they will kind of narrow off in their defence, and they kind of have to. Because Mbappe from a defensive point of view doesn't really do any work, he doesn't track into these areas, France will have to narrow off and make themselves compact. What this then does, with Giroud still not getting goal side, is it means that Declan Rice could be the free man for England in midfield. And with Declan Rice's ability on the ball, that could be very, very dangerous, especially with his ability to switch the play out to someone like Bukayo Saka, who for me has a big role to play in this England attack. I think his ability to hold the width, but then also dribble, take on his man, attack players, is really important. His ability to get balls into the box, something which England have benefited from already at this tournament, could be really dangerous. The other thing that's going to be dangerous is the fact that Theo Hernandez is initially defending narrow, which means it takes a bit of time for him to get out to Saka. So again, that does give Saka that chance in the 1 versus 1 to dribble with the ball down the line, but also it gives opportunities for Jordan Henderson to exploit this space. Now you might look at Rabiot and go, well, he's kind of in the team to do that defensive work going that way, but I've been watching France very closely at this tournament, thinking that England might face them in the quarterfinal, and Rabiot is a player who has a massive tendency to switch off. He kind of has this ability to look like he's doing defensive work when he actually isn't. Now, that might not be the case in this game. He might really be on it, be really motivated and switched on through the game, which then provides a different problem. But I just think from what we've seen throughout his career, Jordan Henderson can really get into this space. Jordan Henderson against Rabiot, for me, is a massive battle, and I think Jordan Henderson's intensity could be really important. Yes, he has quality on the ball, which England will need, but just his drive, his energy, the intensity, the tempo with which he plays, could be really important. I think it's the same down the left side with Bellingham as well, up against Griezmann. From a physical point of view, it's a mismatch. Bellingham is a lot better, and it's why I think these two are perhaps the two most important players for England. I don't think Griezmann and Rabiot want to go back towards their own goal. I don't think it's what they want to do. Combine that with the fact that Henderson and Bellingham do want to go forward, it could make England really dangerous. And I think this is where they could have a lot of success. Building the ball out wide down the left-hand side, and then getting these underlapping runs from Jude Bellingham into these areas, and then of course sometimes switching the play out to the right-hand side, and getting the underlapping runs from Henderson. There are genuinely a few good areas where England can hurt this French team. Of course, for that to happen, the attack need to provide quality. We know how good Foden is, don't really need to say too much about him. We know what Kane brings by dropping deep. And as I was saying, I don't think France will want to follow him into these areas, which does give England a potential overload in the middle. And then Saka on the right wing, kind of being that isolation winger. could really be dangerous for England. Combine that with the fact with the midfielders that want to get forward, England have a way of progressing the ball down the left-hand side with the Foden, Shaw, Jude Bellingham combination, down the right-hand side with the switch to Bukayo Saka playing as an isolation winger, and then through the middle with Harry Kane dropping deep creating the overload, but also then these two players getting forward. England have lots of areas where they can exploit this France team. However, for all those positives, England do need to focus on how to stop France as well. I do think this is a game where England will have more of the ball than people are expecting. I do think England will carry a lot of threat and get themselves into some really good positions. So that is absolutely a positive. In terms of, can England beat France? Absolutely. Because I think we've seen already several tactical areas where England can really exploit this French defence. I don't think the defence is great. England can really exploit it. However, as we know, France have their own threats as well, so that's what we're going to talk about now. So we have now seen what England can do going forward. However, we do of course have to look at the other side of things as well, because if we look at this France squad, there is a ridiculous amount of attacking talent, a ridiculous amount of quality on the ball, in possession. And like I was saying with England, France will also have their fair share of possession. I do think it's going to be quite an even split, which means England are going to have a lot of defensive work to do. And I think it's time for England fans, England players and England manager to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. France are going to have spells in this game. The question is, how can England kind of try and reduce the spaces for them and make sure that they keep a clean sheet? If England can keep this tight as long as possible, then they will feel they have that chance to win, because England have their own quality players as well. The question is, how do you do it from a tactical point of view? What can Gareth Southgate do? What can he pull out the bag to make sure that England are solid defensively? That's the question, because they are in France, they are facing a quality which they haven't faced before. But let's just get straight into it, because I have a bit of an idea. Like I said, I'm not too sure. I don't have the concrete answer for you on how to stop France. If I did have the answers on how to stop France, I probably wouldn't be in here recording this right now. I'd be in Qatar working with a national team. So I don't have the answers. Of course I don't. However, I do have an idea. So let me know what you guys think of this in the comments down below. So in terms of how France look to set up on the ball, for me it's an off-balance 3-2 followed by a 4-1. With Rabiot and Griezmann kind of operating as 3/8, the wingers holding the width initially and Giroud up top. We have Koundé at right back playing in what becomes a front three, a slightly tucked in position. Tchouaméni playing as a solo pivot, and then Theo Hernandez on his left hand side, who will then be given the licence to get forward. Now, in terms of how England approach it, I think mentality is key. I've seen some people saying that England should go for a high press, I've seen people saying a mid block, I've seen people saying a low block, and I get the benefits to all of them. The high press, you stop France getting into a rhythm. The mid block, you can prevent certain spaces. Dropping deep, you can stop Mbappe, Dembele getting in behind you from a defensive point of view. Completely understand that. I've also seen people saying England should turn to a back five, with Trippier coming in at wing back. I get why people are saying that, but for me, for that to happen, you have to lose one of Rice, Bellingham and Henderson, which isn't worth doing, in my opinion. Or you have to lose one of the front three, but then you lose all those attacking threats I was just talking about. In my opinion, England should stick with the same formation. And if France are building up in this shape, I think England should try and do kind of a bit like what France were talking about earlier. England should try and force France into certain areas of the pitch. We know that the French want to come down the left-hand side. Of course they do. Theo Hernandez, one of the best attacking left-backs in the world, probably the only one that is better, is playing on the other side of the pitch in this game. And then Mbappe, for me, probably the most dangerous player on the planet right now, probably the best player on the planet. He's an absolute joke, he's ridiculous. I don't know how you stop him, I'll be honest with you. So France are going to want to try and progress the ball down this side of the pitch. So for me, the key is stopping France from doing that. There's a lot of talk of how do you stop Kylian Mbappe? Do you go 2 versus 1 on him? Do you go 3 versus 1 on him? Is Walker's pace enough? For me, if Kylian Mbappe has the football, it's too late. He's that good. It's like prime Ronaldo, prime Messi, not quite the same level, but that sort of, you know what they want to do. Stopping it is a completely different matter. Mbappe is just terrifying once he actually has the ball. So for me, the English approach shouldn't be, how do we stop Mbappe once he's on the ball? Stop him getting the ball. That is the key for England, because if England put 3 players around Mbappe, then there is so much quality in this French team elsewhere on the pitch. People really are disrespecting players like Griezmann, Dembele, but also Giroud. There is so much quality in this France team, you can't just go 3 versus 1 on Mbappe, it doesn't work. So, instead what I think England should do is set up in a mid-block. Make sure they aren't sitting too deep, because immediately inviting the pressure on, which England have done in the past in big games, it's a recipe for disaster if you ask me. When you're playing quality, eventually that quality pays off. If England sit all the way deep, then someone like Theo Hernandez or Ousmane Dembele is going to put a good cross into the box, Giroud's going to put it into the back of the net. I don't think England can afford to sit too deep. However, I also don't think England should press all the way. Instead, England should focus on forcing the ball into certain areas of the pitch. And for me, the idea would be, can we get France to go down their right-hand side? Because they are so keen to go down their left. Can we get them going the other way? I think you can. And the key for that for me is letting the centre-backs have the ball initially. However, when the ball goes across to Upamecano, the better ball player of the two centre-backs, and of course the left-sided centre-back, for me that should be the pressing trigger for Harry Kane. Harry Kane, as a striker, should kind of sit in this right-sided spot here and pressure Upamecano, forcing Varane to have the ball. From here, Foden needs to take a narrow position here, not touch tight on Koundé, because if not he's going to leave spaces elsewhere, but he needs to kind of do this shadow press here, where he's cutting the pass to Ousmane Dembele like this, but also if the ball goes to Koundé, he can step up and force the ball to go back again. So that's where Foden's position should be. From here, I also think a man-for-man approach in the midfield is England's best strategy. Bellingham on Tchouaméni, Declan Rice on Antoine Griezmann, and then Jordan Henderson on Rabiot. Now, I was saying this the other day, that when you use a man-to-man system, you put more emphasis on individual quality. Personally, I think physically, and in terms of an intensity point of view, I think England have the better midfield. I think England's midfield three is more equipped for this game. I think if Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham and Jordan Henderson are all on it, I think it is a better midfield than what the French have. But from a physical point of view, I think England could kind of use that physical approach to really overrun that midfield. A bit like what the USA done to England in the group stage, England could do something similar to France. And the idea is that you're trying to stop France from passing the ball forward. In terms of if Giroud then wants to drop feet, Harry Maguire needs to be the aggressive defender. Simply because Stones is the quicker defender to act on the recovery side of things. If you do it the other way around, we know that Maguire isn't very quick. But this should be England's approach. Kyle Walker touch tight on Kylian Mbappe at all times. Luke Shaw the same on Ousmane Dembele. Now from here, the important thing is going to be the awareness of the midfielders, because someone like Griezmann is going to make a run off the ball like this. England's midfielders need to be ready to track that and follow it. But genuinely, I think if England set up like this and kind of let Varane have the ball, I think England could have a lot of joy, because Varane, I'm a Manchester United fan. Those of you that are new to the channel over the World Cup may not know this. I cover United a lot, I talk about United a lot, and I think Varane is a very good defender. However, on the ball, he's very limited. If we look at his numbers in terms of progressive passes, very average, but also even below average actually. I've been kind to him there. Below average for progressive passes, and then even long passes, which is of course a threat with someone like Mbappe. Even that, he doesn't attempt passes too often, but also he doesn't complete them too often. About 60%, which isn't great for the type of long pass he completes. England need to try and force Varane into having the ball, because he makes errors. He does make errors in possession. And if England can turn the ball over in this sort of area, with Varane playing passes into Griezmann and Rice winning that battle, England are then in an excellent position to try and transition and try and counter. And genuinely, I think that's the way that England should approach this game. The approach needs to be brave. It needs to be this mid-block shape. Now, of course, there will be spells where England are forced to sit slightly deeper, because the French team are good. They have a lot of quality on the ball. They will find their way forward. So England do, like I said at the start, need to get used to being uncomfortable. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because there are going to be spells where this France team have a lot of the ball and are trying to push and probe, trying to pull England apart, work the ball into different areas. They're going to try and get Kylian Mbappe dribbling into different areas. England just need to stay strong. And Jordan Henderson is going to be one of the keys to that, because the French team will try and overload this wide area here with Theo Hernandez, Mbappe and Rabiot, who are forming a very deadly trio at this tournament. Kyle Walker, Henderson, but also Saka need to do their defensive work and make sure that England aren't getting outnumbered in this area. And I think from this point of view, Henderson and Walker are key from a defensive side. Like I said, the idea is stop France getting the ball down the left-hand side, but you can't do that all the time. They will get the ball into these areas. Walker needs to win his 1v1s up against Mbappe, but I also think Henderson tracking Rabiot is really key to this. And I think it's something that people are underlooking a little bit. Keep an eye on that battle. That will be very, very important. And then also in these areas, from a more defensive side of things, Jude Bellingham needs to win his duels with Antoine Griezmann. Now, we know Griezmann is a very good player who wants to get on the turn, drop a shoulder. Very cute in the way that he plays. Perhaps Bellingham can override him from a physical point of view. And then down this side of the pitch, Shaw against Dembele, I think that's a really good battle. Ousmane Dembele is one of the best players in the world. When he's fit, if you ask me, he's one of the best. If he'd had more luck with his injuries in his career, we could be talking about him on Mbappe's level. I genuinely do believe that. Luke Shaw has got to be on it. The good thing for Shaw is that Koundé down this side probably won't provide as much attacking support. So if Foden is happy to do a little bit of defensive work, then England may be able to double up on him in these areas. But realistically, the focus of France is going to be down this side. England need to ride their luck a little bit as well. We can talk about how Southgate should set up. We have, of course, spoken about that today. I think that mid-block, forcing Varane into possession and then using that as the trap to win the ball in midfield and then pounce from there. I think that is the way for England to approach this game, because I think it stops Mbappe getting on the ball. I think it stops all those other stars from getting on the ball. Then, in those spells where France do have more possession and do get higher up the pitch, the players like Kyle Walker, Jordan Henderson, Jude Bellingham, Bukayo Saka, very, very important stopping this France team. But also, Pickford's going to have to be on it. John Stones is going to have to be on it. England are going to need to ride their luck, because this France team is just slightly better than this England team. However, as I've been saying throughout the video, we can see weaknesses in this French team. In terms of England attacking, there are certainly areas where you can get at this France team, and then in possession, I think there are ways you can stop them. I think Varane, using him as that player who you're kind of letting have the ball, use that as the trigger. I don't know if you guys remember, I done a tactical preview on Manchester United versus Liverpool earlier in the season, and we done something similar talking about Liverpool in that game. Forcing a certain centre-back to have the ball and using that as the trigger to then go from there and pick up man for man all over the rest of the pitch, it kind of leaves that player trapped, and it worked brilliantly for United in that game. We could see the same here. Now it's over to you, Gareth Southgate. It's over to you, the players. Can you make it happen? Can you make it work from a defensive point of view, from an attacking point of view? Can England get it done? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. These are my thoughts, and this is how I would be approaching the game. Just a bit of like a disclaimer. I'm not saying this is how the game will go, or how I think it is going to happen. It's how I would be approaching the match, and it's a way that I think England can beat France. There are, of course, other ways. There are also plenty of ways that France can beat England. There's plenty of ways that this ends up as a draw and goes to penalties, which, a little bit scary. But in terms of this video, that is all I have to say. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know your predictions in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next one.